Waiting on the right-hand side now, and he's away from two challenges. Still he goes, Houlihan. Now in doubt. There's a shot on here. It's for Stuart Byrne. What a wonderful goal from Shelbourne. Houlihan and in doubt.
Joining me on today's episode of The Player Position is League of Ireland legend Stuart Byrne. Stuart won 3 titles in 4 years during his time at Shelbourne, playing alongside the likes of Joseph N'Doe and Wes Houlihan under the guidance of manager Pat Fenlon. He discusses the controversial 2006 title, where Shelbourne weren't even paying players' wages for weeks on end. He then joined Drogheda and won a 4th title. Stuart discusses playing against Roy Keane, that famous Deportivo tie in the Champions League, and much more on this week's episode of The Player Position.
Stuart, it's great to have you on. Thanks very much for coming. What would be your earliest memories of playing football? Like, I know you played for Home Farm and mini leagues and stuff like that. What would be your earliest memories of all that?
Oh God, the mini leagues would be there actually. Yeah, the Home Farm mini leagues. They were fantastic. If you think about, I think the best way to describe the Home Farm mini leagues to somebody now to try and get them to understand it would be something similar to the way the GAA organise these sort of big communal training things on a Saturday, like in the Fina, like they'd be there all day playing, and that's the way the Home Farm mini leagues were. There was this huge, big congregation of people. It was all volunteer. There'd be hundreds of kids down, and it would be basically organised like a World Cup. So you'd get. I think it would normally end up being sort of 7 aside. You'd have, Uruguay, Argentina, all the countries in the world, and you do an opening ceremony, and you'd have the you'd make makeshift signs where somebody would walk ahead of the team with Argentina and all, and you'd match it, even so far as like a parent would get the jerseys made, like whatever way they had to do it, draw blue lines down. But it was Jesus, when I think back, it was incredible. Actually, it was fantastic. So that'll be my earliest memory of a team thing.
And you moved to Stella Maris then. What was the reason behind that? Did you just feel like your time at Home Farm, you weren't progressing as much as you thought, or what was it?
No, I got let go. Actually, I got let go. They didn't want me, believe it or not. I think things weren't great at home. I think it was about 15. Things hadn't a bit all over the shop at that age, to be honest with you. So all sorts going on at home, and I think I just lost the interest. And I ended up going to Stella Maris and playing for the Stella Maris B team actually for a year. And I kind of got my love for the game back. I kind of fell out of love with the game, and funny enough, that trait has always been in me. I've a very love-hate relationship with football. I don't know. Maybe I need to sit down with a psychiatrist and talk about it. But there's times where I love it, and there's times where I hate it so much. But at 15, fell out of love with it. Just wasn't really applying myself. Went to play for Stella Maris in their B team, and then very quickly got it back again, and ended up playing with the the A team, the A team, yeah, and enjoyed that. I have to say, enjoyed. I didn't like Home Farm. I thought Home Farm at the time when I was there, kind of a little bit up on itself and smelling itself a little bit, and a bit sort of, prestigious and very political, But that's the world of. That's just the world, So the time of Stella Maris I enjoyed because it was a smaller club. There was a great group of lads that were there. Trevor Malloy was there at the time. Glenn Crowe would play with us, and Sean Kavanagh, and it was enjoyable. So I think I fit more into Stella Maris than I did into Home Farm.
And then you eventually settled on moving to Bohemians. What was your time there like? You were there for 2 years.
That was a mistake. So that was the first time. So I think it's fair to say that I had been sort of just rolling along, really, not really. I'd say I'm a late developer, so I wasn't really focusing on what I needed to focus on in school. By just going from kind of rolling along, fluting around with positions. I used to play centre forward at home farm, believe it or not, and then I played right wing for Stella Maris, and then I ended up settling in, centre midfield. So I was kind of, uh, you know, um, experiencing different things without really kind of focusing on any one position. Um, and I signed for Bows, which I thought was the right decision at the time. I remember Liam Toohey telling me at the time it was a mistake. He says, you just won't play. Turlock O'Connor's the manager. He doesn't play anybody under the age of 30. So that was when I realised I cannot make that mistake again, because I'm stuck there for 2 years, However, what I will say about my time at Bows was, even though I never really felt comfortable there, never settled in, I got to, I definitely developed as a player from being around such really good players, so I was, Tommy Byrne and Taki O'Connor, Morris O'Driscoll were there at the time, Dave Henderson. They were brilliant. They were really great professionals, and great to me as well. So I was always on the periphery of the first team. I mean, I made my European debut for Bows. I came on in the game. Away to Minsk, Dynamo Minsk in Belarus. That was a trip. Now, that was because of the time period and the proximity to Chernobyl and all that sort of stuff. So, but I came on in the game. I got injured in the game and ended up coming off, believe it or not, tore my calf in the game. So I was only on for about 30 minutes. But I took what I could out of the Bohemians experience. And try to learn from that. But the one thing I definitely learned was I can't make a mistake again on sort of, if you're gonna sign for some sort of team for 2 years, it has to be the right decision. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck there.
And then you joined Home Farm after that. Do you feel like that was a good decision for you at that time in your career?
Yeah, it was, because I just got playing football, so dropped down to the first division. And Dermot Keeley had signed me for Home Farm. It was Home Farm Everton at the time. Everton had the connection, and I suppose I was playing first team football regularly, and that's where I certainly look back at the Home Farm period as being the time where I kind of really nailed down where I wanted to play, what I should be, what I had to offer as a player, what I should be focusing on. I kind of got all the cobwebs, all the frustration, all this stuff out of me a little bit in Home Farm. I had I had a big falling out with Dermot, actually. At Home Farm on the pitch, believe it or not, and we a bit of a shouting match, and he whipped me off at half time and all this kind of stuff. But I realised, on the bus, and maybe it was a good thing that it was an away game to Galway, and I had a couple of hours to kind of think about it on the bus. But I realised on the bus that I had been giving him grief back. Now, Dermot's a roarer and a shouter, and you kind of, once you come to accept that, then that's fine, But I didn't accept it at the time. But I think I had on the bus back, had time to think about it and realised that I was wrong, and he was the manager and so on and so forth. So I remember the next day we were training, and I went up to him. I think he was going to say, "I'm done with you," but I went straight up to him and I said, "Look, I apologise. I was in the wrong." And I I realised there and then how good Dermot was. He literally pivoted on it just like that. Everything changed, just completely changed his whole outlook with me. And admitted it even so at the end of the season. So that was the first time where you kind of, I learned a big lesson in that, like, you just have to be honest with yourself in this game, and you know, you can't sort of, you can't pretend, or you can't, you just have to kind of, I suppose, just be honest with yourself. You'd be a better player, better person for it, like, you know. So, and then I loved the rest of the season. Then with Dermot, he went to Shells at the end of that season, and then unfortunately, Mick Lawler came in as a manager, and that just didn't go well at all. To be honest with you, that didn't go well at all. I had been, again, personal things weren't. I left my left my home. I think it was 20 at the time. Left my house. I was kind of living with a friend. Things were a little bit all over the place, and I could have done with having Dermot in my second year at Home Farm, because the guy, Mick came in. I just couldn't understand this guy at all, like, you know. But the wrong manager for me, and ended up quitting football. Believe it or not, ended up quitting football on a December night. I think it was up in Monaghan, and basically gave it up for 5 months.
Yeah, I was reading that before you joined Longford, you did take a few months off football, and you talked earlier about your love-hate relationship with football. Do you feel like this was a moment where it was kind of going to go one way or the other? And what were your kind of thoughts at the time? Did it feel like it benefited you?
Yeah, so I was done with it. End of story. I was done with it. Like, a lot of personal things going on at family-wise. I wasn't living at home. I had been writing music, believe it or not, and I literally quit. I said, you know what, I'm gonna focus on music. I'm gonna write music. I'm gonna do all this kind of stuff. And that was it. So I quit. For what I thought was a definitive period. I thought that was it. And then I met my now wife, who has lived down the road from me all my life. We both grew up in Cedarwood Road, and I got together with her finally, or she got together with me one way or the other. Like, you know, we were always kind of childhood sort of, this sort of, how would you describe it? I'd say childhood sweetheart, but there was neither I or Nuala would sort of press the button. It was that kind of a typical Irish kind of a thing, isn't it? Like, you know, so we got together eventually, and then that changed everything for me. I kind of got out of my own way a little bit, if that makes sense. I think I was fighting with myself a little bit. I've always been like that. Like, I've always sort of, you know, there was a period when I was younger where you put me in a room on my own, I'd have an argument with myself, like, you know. So I kind of got out of my own way a little bit. Nuala kind of helped me with that. The break from football definitely helped. I just felt that it was just, it wasn't doing me any good at the time. And then Stephen Kenny rang me. I think Stephen was the perfect manager for me at the time. Stephen's strongest attribute is making you feel your worth better than what you are. I wouldn't even say maybe better than what you are, but making you feel that you've got something to offer, like that, you know, that you have value. I said I'd meet him, and I think I met him in the Lord Mayor's in Swords. I'd been living in Swords and bought a house, with Nuala. That was our first house, and met him in Swords, and I just liked his whole approach. He was very, he wasn't a roarer and a shouter. He wasn't overly intense. He just had a very sort of quiet, ambitious nature about him, and I think he was just the perfect manager for me at the time. And I just said, yeah, this will suit me down to the ground, like, you know. The team, to be fair, the team that I was going into at Longford, they weren't they weren't these big names, if you know what I mean. Like, you know, they were all, as I soon learned, they were all excellent footballers in their own right, like, you know. But I think you could possibly describe them as being a very eclectic mix, like, not a bit like a crazy gang, like a Wimbledon, but better footballers, if you know what I mean. Like, there was just this brilliant dynamic about the whole thing, and there was great banter there, and I just enjoyed it. I put my head down. I was quiet at the time. I wasn't very loud, or I wouldn't be one of these bantery kind of people, like, if you know what I mean. But I appreciated being part of a group that sort of they kind of welcomed me in, and it just all fitted,
And obviously that was when Stephen Kenny was at a very early stage in his career. But could you see at that stage, that he was going to go on to be a top manager?
Probably not. No, to be quite honest with you, I think he anyone who's ever worked with Stephen, like, he has he has these quirks, and but what he does is, I think he's brilliant with young players. I think he's brilliant with getting the best out of players, and I suppose I didn't think about it too much, and it was only then, from being in the Longford team, and like, I couldn't put my finger on it, if you know what I mean. Like, but I suppose every manager has to have an X factor. Every manager has to have a bit of luck. Every manager has to have maybe something different. Every manager has to have good people around them, good players, so on and so forth. Like, but he just had sort of he had a magic potion. I don't know, that it just worked. Looking back at it now, I couldn't put my finger on it at the time. I just knew I just really enjoyed being here. There was times where, when you look at the kind of group of players we had, and we'd be playing the likes of Shells, like, Tony Sheridan and Pat Fenlon and Owen Healy and Pat Scully, Stephen Gagan, and all like that. And there'd be times where we'd be as good as them. I think there'd be times where I think we might even beat them once or twice. Like, and this is, the team's gone for winning league titles, and I can't put my finger on it at all. Like, but when I think back on it now, I think we just went and played. I think what he did was he put a group of players together. He got the balance right, and there was just this attitude of, like, just go and play, no huge pressure on us, and it worked. It worked.
And after your time finished there, like, you'd had a really good time there, like getting to a final of an FAI Cup, playing in Europe. After your time finished up there, a lot of the big clubs were in for you, like Pats, Shells, Bows, Rovers. What was it that made you choose Shells in the end, or what did you see in them? Because obviously you went on to win so much there.
I've always, like, at the time, we'd be playing Shelbourne, and they just had that. They just looked the part. You know what I mean? So, they'd arrive for games and coach, and they'd have all the the white tracksuits or the red tracksuits. The skips would come off. There'd be like 5 or 6 skips. The kit man, bringing it all in, and they just had that look about them. And I just remember going, this is the team. I loved Talca Park. Loved playing in Talca Park. Talca Park's really only down the road from me. Loved playing there, and everything was, they had that kind of Manchester United feel about them. They the players, they played a certain style. They had the Tony Sheridans and the Stephen Gagans, and you look back at sort of some of the goals that they've scored. They had that. They just had that. That was I had been at Bows, that wasn't for me. And I just always latched on to Shelbourne. So I remember Stephen had left Longford to go to Bows mid-season, actually, and I had a clause in my contract, and I don't know, for the life of me, I don't know why I put this in. Like, but I had put it in my contract that if Stephen left, I'd have the right to leave. Like, I still for the life of me don't know why I put that down. I think it was because I was signing for him, and I think I had a very big mistrust of managers at the time. and possibly that must have been it, because like I just couldn't, knowing I had this very fragile relationship with football. I just said I can't have a situation where the manager goes and someone else comes in. I just don't, I just couldn't take that. So maybe that's why I did it. But anyway, Stephen left, and I could have left there and then, but didn't. And when I had been speaking to Stephen about going to Bows at the end of the season, and I think everyone thought that was a bit of a shoe-in, myself and Paul McNally, he wanted to sign, and he had left in January, and the end of the season was May, and so there was this big sort of 6-month period, like, where it was all like it was the best known secret in that himself and Paul McNally be going there. But I wasn't sure on it, really. I wasn't sure on the Bows thing at all. And what happened as the end of the season had come along, and I've been speaking to 4 clubs. I found that very tiring. That was really tough to do that, and Dermot Keeley had been talking to me about going to Shells, right? And I wanted to sign for Shells, but I didn't want to sign for Dermot. And I was just I didn't know what way to go about it, and I was kind of really struggling with it. And as it turned out, Dermot stepped down from Shells. He lost his father and took a break from football. And then in the interim period, I had kept talking to Shells, to Ollie Byrne. And then when Pat Fenlon got the manager's job, I went with it straight away. I no hesitation in my mind. I knew I had huge respect for Pat at the time, from playing against him. Definitely, probably one of the best, if not the best, midfielder at the time in the country. He was just an incredible player, but a good. I had gotten to kind of know Pat a little bit from the PFAI. Pat was chairman of the PFAI at the time. I was on the committee and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of got to know him, and I really liked him. Really liked his whole outlook, So that made the decision for me,
And we'll touch on 2006 in a bit, but the first 2 seasons, 2003 and 2004, you won you're so successful winning the 2 titles. What do you think that was down to? Was it kind of obviously the players and Pat doing such a great job, but do you think it was just the whole cohesion of the squad as well?
Oh yeah, it was just it had everything. But when Pat, the one thing Pat made clear from the outset, I knew this. I kind of knew this about going to Shells, that it was a huge step up in mentality, if you know what I mean. And at the time, Shells had been building. Ollie Byrne had been pushing the club. He wanted to win the league, Europe, win the league, Europe, win the league. That's it. That was it. See, FA Cup, not interested. Not interested. League Cups, not interested. Win the league, Europe. Trying to bridge that gap, trying to make that breakthrough in European football. Because he had seen the benefits of, the likes of I think Rosenberg was a huge influence on the thought process at Shelbourne, because Rosenberg, a team from a town in Norway, Trondheim, 70,000 people population, and here's a team with 20,000 seater stadium, playing in the group stages every year. So it was that kind of if they can do it, then why can't we? So that was the thought process. I signed for Shells in just the end of 2001. They were going full time, and Pat had gone. But in Pat's first year as manager, he was player manager. I think people might forget that, believe it or not. He still signed as a player and still played the odd game, but he had this. I signed for Shells, and the first thing I was given was an itinerary. when training was, what I need to be doing in the off season. We had started to do core and Pilates and all sorts of ball work. This is like in the early noughties. Like, I don't know, no one in Ireland was doing it. I think Pat had a great relationship with Middlesbrough, and he had gone over to Middlesbrough in their pre-season and brought back all this kind of stuff. So there was just this huge step up in professionalism, but with that came expectation, and it was made clear to you from the outset: we have to win the league. That's it. We have to win the league. Not winning the league is a failure. So there was big pressure on us, and the first year was the transition year. It was a shortened season because we were going from the winter season into the summer season. That was our first season, Pat's first season, my first season, and we finished second to Bows. I think that year Bows won the league with Stephen as manager in Talca Park. Bet us in Talca Park to win the league, and I never forget that night. Never forget being in the dressing room, listening to them roaring and shouting outside, and feeling sick to the teeth. And I even remember Pat saying, "You need to listen to that because just make sure it doesn't happen again." Because that, and it was it ended up being a huge. I think it's what we needed to hear as a squad, and so that kind of gave us that sort of hunger to kind of make sure. Once the 2003 season came out, that we were ready to go, So, and we won the league. We won the league 2003, won the league 2004, and all the time, there was just pressure you felt like there was pressure every week at Shelbourne. There'd be kids coming back from England. It felt like it was every week, but kids coming back, real top players coming back from Man City or Man United or whatever, and they'd be training with us, and it was just this constant. It was just keeping you on your toes. Like, you always had this sense that you're never comfortable. Like, you're never comfortable. You had to perform. You felt like you had to perform and training every day just to kind of be in. To be considered to play on the Friday. So there was just, and I loved that. There was just this hunger about the team that was. I genuinely mean this. We didn't have one bad apple in the team, and I don't know why that is. I don't know whether it was because Pat just was very cautious on who he would sign, or I think it might have been the attitude of the team. The standards, low standards just weren't accepted. It's just that simple. If you were feigning an injury or you were not putting in training, there'd be somebody on you in a flash, straight up in your face. Just get your shit together. You're not doing it or anything. It just felt like there was this. But with that, there was that camaraderie. There was like this silent connection between everybody. We all knew. That's why we were there. When you signed for Shelbourne, you knew that, especially when you spoke to Pat, it was to win the league, to try and make this breakthrough in Europe. Pressure, can't take the pressure, off you go. And we all signed up for it, if you know what I mean. So we were all on board with that. So it was a brilliant dressing room, and it was a player-driven dressing room. Pat just stood back and only came in when he needed to come in. But my God, when he needed to come in, you'd be just like, okay, I won't do that again, sort of stuff. So we, I suppose we just had that bit of magic, the balance was just perfect.
You talked then about Europe and the demand for success in Europe from the club. Probably one of the most famous times in Shelbourne history was that tie against Deportivo, who had the previous year got into the semi-final, only losing to Mourinho's Porto, who went on to win the Champions League. You got a 0-0 draw in Dublin, and there was unbelievable support from not just Shells fans, but the whole country got behind the team. What are your memories of that time and the kind of lead up to that fixture?
Oh God! Well, first and foremost, I remember thinking we can do it. We can come up with a game plan to beat these. That definitely. I think that was. We had struggled in Europe for the previous 2 years. We weren't getting it right, if you know what I mean. The balance was wrong, or we just weren't adapting to the different style of play, or we would in particular, we hadn't been playing well in Tolka, believe it or not. You know, we were, our away form was good, but we weren't doing it at home. But we lacked. I think what we lacked was a thought process, an understanding, a kind of a tactical understanding of the game in Europe. It took us a couple of years to realise that you're playing against players that will just punish you in an instant if you make a mistake, like, you know. So we got it right that year because we changed the shape. We adopted a kind of a 4-5-1 system, and we brought in Alan Moore. From Alan came home from England. Alan was just this, like, you know, Ryan Giggs, George Best type, just you know, a special player, like, you know. And Wes Houlihan was moving into that sort of space where you're looking at him, you're going, "Ooh, this fella's a player." Like, you're just looking at him, going, "This guy's ridiculous," you know. So it all kind of came together in 04. We tactically got things right. We had the X factor in Alan and Wes, and going into the Deportivo game, we had beaten Hajduk Split. We weren't expected to beat Hajduk Split. Hajduk were a top quality European team. I think we caught a lot of people off guard by beating them. And I think we just took huge belief from that game, from progressing against Hajduk Split. We said, well, why not? Why can't we beat Deportivo? I mean, yeah, they're streets ahead of us, but if we come up with a game plan, and if we all believe in that game plan, then we can hurt them, like, you know. And it worked for up until, you know, the people would say we were 30 minutes from the group stages of the Champions League, but we kind of were, really, like, you know. And we, you know, the home game, I think the home game went perfectly well, perfect for us. I think there was a lot of pressure on us in the home game because, as you say, the world just opened up to it. Like, I mean, I remember driving from Drumcondra, getting the police escort from we stayed in City West. We drove in via Dundrum, and from Dundrum nearly to Lansdowne, there were just jerseys everywhere, and it was just it was brilliant, actually. I think, funny enough, you think that might make you nervous. It didn't. I think that kind of spurred us on. You see Cork jerseys, Bows jerseys, Pat's jerseys, and you're kind of going, Jesus, this is something. This is special. Like, you know, this is. We've been in such a bubble that we didn't really, you know, have much exposure to what way people were thinking. But we've, like, going into the game, we're going, God, like, I think everyone's behind us, you know, and it felt that way. And in the home game, like, I think it went perfect, really, with the exception we didn't score, and we could have scored. And I think Murgy had a good chance that could have scored, and maybe Jason had a kind of a chance, but everything went perfect in the fact that we were playing against Deportivo La Coruña, as you rightly said, had gone out of the competition 4 months prior in the semi-finals to Porto, who won it. You know, the home game sort of gave us this confidence that, you know what, we can do this. That we really, if we just accept what we're good at, accept what we're not good at, you know, try and nullify them, frustrate them, and see if we can nick a goal. And then it all. So, you know, even at half time over in Deportivo, Jason had a wonderful chance, believe it or not, and we knew we had to score. Like, even if Deportivo scored, it didn't matter because we had to score 0-0. We had to score anyway. So we even talked about this. You know, if we concede, it doesn't matter, and we got it. And at half time, we're still talking about this. Then we come out, and my memories of the game, we were a little bit loose in the second half. We didn't have that. We didn't nail that. The start, we were a bit loose. We got a little bit sloppy. And they scored, and I think they scored quite soon into the second half, probably 10-15 minutes into the second half, and it didn't affect us really. Like, it didn't like we had talked about this. You know, we don't need to worry. Just keep playing. And we kept playing, and then like the second goal, which is the killer blow, which is the one you're done because have to get 2 goals. If you look back at it, right, like I have never seen a goal like that in real time. Like it was the best goal I think I've ever seen on a football pitch. Victor, like he's nearly 40 yards out, and he just pings this thing, and I'm looking at going like, and maybe Willow could have been better for it, but I was seeing it in real life, and I've gone, whoa. Yeah. And this thing just went straight into the top corner, and I think I realised then I went, right, I get this. Now I get it. Now I really get it. This is why you're playing against, these teams. They just have this quality level that's just beyond comprehension to us at the time. But and that was it really. Like, the third goal was we had lost our little bit of discipline. I think we were arguing a little bit with each other. Like, it didn't really. The third goal doesn't really kind of reflect on the game at all. Like, but the second goal with Victor was like no answer for it. Like,
You were marking Juan Carlos Balleron in that game, who was one of the most coveted players in Europe at the time. Was that experience something where you were like, wow, this guy is just ridiculous? Like, is that where you thought, wow, this is like the level of the top players? Like, it's scary.
Oh yeah, he scared me. Oh, going back to in the build up to the European games, we had, we talked about change in shape, 4-5-1. We're going to play. Pat had pulled me aside, myself and Alan Moore, and he, me and Alan would room each other and all that. And Pat kind of said, I'm going to get you to sit, right? I want you to be the protector, like, that kind of way. That, which was a total opposite of how I would normally play in the league games. But I said, yeah. I said, yeah, because so I'm playing. I don't care. So he says, Pat had identified that most European teams play with this number 10, this false 9 guy, and he's the guy that hurts it, that way. So in the same way we signed Alan to be our number 10, or our everyone else was doing the same, but I needed to shut that player down. So I had done that in all the previous rounds. I'd be getting DVDs on these guys, and then we get the Deportivo, and we get Deportivo. I'm going, oh well, brilliant. And then I go, oh shit, I got to mark this guy, and he's a Spanish number 10. He's the probably, like the Kaká of European. He's probably one of the best European footballers at the time. And I don't know. I think I took a very practical view of it. I just said, look, I'm not on the pitch to get on the ball or to make things happen. I'm on the pitch to shut him down. And I just focused on it. I just said, right, I'm just going to literally try and watch the videos on him. And that you learn so much from that. But it's only until you play against these guys that you really kind of get the respect, and you kind of know what you're up against. I remember for the first few minutes going up to Balleron, and I'm seeing the number on the back of his jersey, and he just has this, the swagger and the stance, and he's about 6'2". I was surprised at his height. He was towering above me, but he just had this graceful aura about him. And you're just going, oh, Jesus, I'm in trouble here, And luckily it stopped, and I just got it out. I think I got it out of my head because he did something, and I was able to react with him. And I said, okay, I'm okay. I need to get that out of my head. But he frightened me because, I think all the top players do this. They just stand still. They just float. They just drip, and they're lulling you into a false sense of security. And then they're gone. It's gone. And I know you'd keep Fahy. I know you'd keep on the
Yeah.
Keith was like that. So Keith was that good. Keith would steal 5 yards in a step, and you're gone. You can't. You just had this. You had this sort of Paul Gascoigne ability just to go. So So he scared me. He really scared me. But the point, well, like, you know, I had to do a job on him, like, and it wasn't like an old school job, and I had to put him in the stand kind of thing. I had to, like, I knew this guy was, you know, you can't go to ground with this fella. He make a show of you. So I had to give him respect, which I did. But luckily enough, kind of fairly shut him down for the 2 games, really, like, you know. So I played my role, but he scared me. Yeah, he really did. He really did.
Would you have regarded him as one of the best players you've ever played against, or would he be the number one, or would you have someone else?
Player wise,
Yeah.
in competitive football, yeah, definitely. Played against, obviously, friendly wise, it would played against Keane or Veron. Actually, Keane. I remember we actually played United in the friendly in 2002. And this friendly was kind of famous for the fact that it was, I think it was about 5 weeks after Saipan, and it was Keane's first game after the whole row. Like, you know, Keane had gone back to the United camp. He'd gone back into pre-season with United, and they come over and they play us in the game, and it was just bedlam, mayhem, you know. And so I played playing that game against Keane, Veron, and I forget who the other midfielder was, but I remember I was just doing doggies around. There was Veron, everything is one touch, just like touch, and you're just kind of you're just doing this, like, and you don't stand a chance, like, you know. So, but you kind of end up watching these guys more than anything, like, going, these are brilliant, aren't they? You know?
When you're playing against Roy Keane, what is it that is the most kind of, what is the thing that you notice most about him in terms of the qualities that he has?
I think Keane perfected simplification, if you know what I mean. That whole idea of running a game, it was Keane never kind of got on the ball and turned down and pinged the ball 80 yards. Like, he had no interest in doing it. He's going, why do I need to do that? Like, you know, he just had this. He had this aura about him. So football wise, you control the game. He would receive the ball anywhere, go drop in on centre half, get it, and it was like, you know, his second touch was always a pass. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was always, he had perfected the art of first touch, set yourself up, pass, pass. Never took any more than 2 touches. Didn't need to. And so he always moved the ball, like, you know. But I think with Keane as well, you knew he had, like, you knew you just couldn't go in and smash him. Now, I'm not talking about the game we're playing against him. I just think in general, because he take it, you know, the kind of way that you can throw anything at this guy and he'll just turn around and go, well, is that all you got, like, you know? So I think he had this presence. That's a presence you have as a player. And so therefore, as an opponent, you're kind of going, I don't know how to beat this guy. I mean, I can't smash him. I can't outplay him. I can't outrun him because he's, like, you know, he's got that as well. Like, so it's sort of, it's kind of like, I have you beat before you even try, you know, that kind of way. So you're standing beside him in the tunnel, and you're going, what do I do? How do I get the better of this fella? You know. So I think that was. But he did it. If you know what I mean, Keane did it. It wasn't an aura that never really fulfilled itself, and he did it week in, week out. Like, you know, the guy never dropped the standard. Like, you know, and you knew that as a player, and you kind of, so I think he had you beat in the dressing room or in the tunnel. You know.
And in terms of players you played with, like you touched earlier about Wes Hoolahan, obviously he was such an integral player for Ireland for so many years, and he was a kind of player that we don't really have much of over the last kind of 15 years. What do you think was so special about him? And again, like, do you think he was the kind of player that you knew from a young age, this guy's going to go on to be an Ireland international?
Oh, without a doubt. Wes, actually, so my first sending off for Longford was, I just tried to put the guy in the stand. He just frustrated me so much. I said, I can't hack this fella, like, you know. So and then even when I tried to put him in the stand, I missed. I ended up swiping at him, and he's getting up and just walking off, like. And so, but when you played against him, you knew he had something special. When I signed for Shels, and then I was with him, playing with him, I think it's fair to say that he, as a young kid, he needed to kind of get a few things out of the way a little bit. He easily just, he lived in a world where there was distraction, inner city lad, all sorts of stuff going on there. But when Wes came in, when he came into training, and when training started, he just turned on, or in a game turned on. I remember with Wes, you always looked out for him. You were always, because you knew he was special. You knew he had such a talent, right? And the last thing you wanted to see was that talent being wasted. So you were always very protective of him. You kind of, so if anyone went at him, you'd be down their throat, and you'd be putting somebody else in the stand, sort of stuff, or if there was anything else going on in his person, you'd be trying to just kind of get in his ear and say, "Do not realize how good you are." I remember being very frustrated at the football world, going, "How on God's earth is this kid still here?" We're playing Deportivo La Coruña, right? We're Deportivo at home in Lansdowne. I'm just watching Wes going, "This fella's best player on the pitch by a country mile." Like, I'm marking this guy Valeron. It's supposed to be the best number 10, and Wes is he's just running the game. And like, you just go, "This is." I remember saying in the game, "Go, this fella." I said, "He's gone. He's gone after the game. There's going to be a bid in from whatever." Like, when we thought boys at Deportivo put in a bid for him, but it never happened. Never happened. And I got very frustrated at that. Like, very going, what are people not seeing? And then he had to leave. I remember he had to leave the following year, and he went to Livingston in Scotland, maybe 50 grand or something like that. Like, we're kind of going, this doesn't make sense. But, true to his character, he did it the hard way. He went to Livingston, and they immediately seen how good he was. I think Blackpool signed him. I think Lambert signed him up. Was it Blackpool? He knew straight away, and so he had to do it. He had to do it the hard way. Like, Livingston, Blackpool, playing in Division 1, getting kicked up and down the pitch. But then you're starting to see, like in the same way you say about Keane, anything you threw at him was just he just saw you coming. He had that low center of gravity. He had that sixth sense, and you just could not get the ball off him. You couldn't. You just couldn't get the ball up. He would see you coming a mile away. I still look back at his career with Ireland, going, like, he should have had 80 caps. He should have 100. He should have had 100 caps for Ireland, to be honest with you. Trapattoni didn't play him, and whatever. But it's a shame that he just didn't get the opportunity. He eventually got a little bit earlier, because I think we definitely would have seen something really special.
Yeah, no, he was a ridiculous player. But yeah, we talked earlier about your time at Shelbourne. Came to 2006, then club was in serious dire straits financially, but you still managed to win that title. What were your memories of that season? Because it was obviously difficult off the pitch, but it was still going well on the pitch.
My memory, so that was awful. Like, that awful off the pitch. It just felt like every week there was a problem. We weren't getting paid from, there was trouble in pre-season. It settled down then, and then it really sort of picked up about, maybe in April or May of that year. And it, like, it felt like every week in the papers there was something. There was, the club was being sold to Di Stefano. I remember Di Stefano was talking to Ollie about buying the club. This is the famous Italian solicitor that represented Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi, and you're kind of going, what is going on? Like, if this guy's coming in, and then the financial stuff accelerated very quickly, like, to the point where we weren't getting paid for 4 or 5 weeks. Then we get something, then we wouldn't get something for 2 weeks, then we get something, and it was just, it was awful, from a personal point of view. But I think what kept us together on the pitch was the fact that we didn't win the league the previous year in 2005. That was just a disaster for us. And I suppose that's really where the financial stuff really kind of came from. We had signed a few players from Bowes, Colin Hawkins, Bobby Ryan, and Glenn Crowe. I think everyone expected us to walk away with it, and then we didn't get going. We just didn't get going. We lost Wes. Owen had been injured. Owen Healy had been injured from pre-season. Owen was our our leader, our captain. He set the standards, and we just didn't get going at all. Europe was a disaster. We got done by Steaua Bucharest. We played Glentoran and we battered them. And I think we felt good about going into the Steaua Bucharest game. We drew a lot at home with them. And I remember Ali Cal had a header in the last minute to kind of go 1-0 up, and we played very well against them at home. Then we went away, and we're thinking again, this is like our Hajic, or I think we can do these. And Dave Rogers gets sent off after 10 minutes with DK. He has a coming together with DK, and we were just all over the place. We couldn't. We lost a centre half. We didn't have cover. I had to go back centre half. The whole balance of the team got thrown out. We got beat 4-1 in the game. It was a disaster. So the European thing was a disaster. We didn't win the league, and I think going into 2006, coming from where we had been in 2004, I think we felt as a group we just had to win this league. We had to win this league no matter what happened. But my God, we weren't ready for the troubles that were coming our way. It was just awful, and it just accelerated in June and July, whereby the staff hadn't been paid for, I think it was 3 months. They were threatening to strike. Ollie was fighting with them. Then we had a game where we had enough. I think we were to play Waterford at home. We think we were top of the table at the time. We were to play Waterford at home. We hadn't been paid in 4 or 5 weeks. We're all struggling. We're going we're all onto the banks about mortgages, loans, all sorts of stuff going on. And 5 of the players met Pat in Fagan's Friday about 4:30. And the players we just said we're not playing. That's it, lads. We're not playing. We're not playing until we get something off the club, But little did we, Pat was brilliant because Pat was going through it himself. He hadn't been paid in 12 weeks, but he all he had to say was this, and we're full of no way we're playing. That's the end of it, we're sick of it and all this kind of stuff. All Pat had to say was this, lads, I'm with you. You don't play the game, you lose 3 points. You lose 3 points, you won't win a league title. We went away licking our wounds, kind of going, "Oh, Jesus Christ, he's right." We went and played the game, played Waterford. We bet them 5-0 or something, and we were brilliant in the game, So I think that was us really. But then of course, July and August became particularly difficult because Dublin City went to the wall. They went bust, and we had beaten Dublin City twice, so we had 6 points taken off us because any points accumulated against Dublin City became null and void. We had lost 6 points, but Derry, who were our closest contenders, had been beaten by Dublin City, so they gained 3 points. So it was like a 9-point swing, and we're going, and it was. You just felt like everything is going against us. Nothing is going for us, And then Pat, I think Pat had come to the stage. Pat was talking to Bowes about going to Bowes because he just Ollie just wasn't paying him at all. He wasn't even talking or responding to him, And I think he was I think he had very conflicting emotions about the whole thing. So he had been speaking to Bowes, he was his contract was null and void anyway. And I think we thought he was going. I think the press made a big deal out of it. The press were all over. There was. I think every day for about a week there was an article about Pat going to Bowes, about deal nearly done. Ollie threatens to sue, and all this mad stuff's going on, And so it was. There was a lot of outside noise. And I remember then Pat just turned up in training and pulled the players in for a team meeting. I remember going, "Oh Jesus, this is it," And he just says, "Don't mind all that shit in the paper. I'm staying. Let's go and win a league title." And we did. And I for the life of me, I don't know how we did. we fell over the line, you know, but there was just this, something came from somewhere, some sort of inner drive, and that collectiveness that we had, that sort of collective hunger and ambition that we had, it just kind of got us over the line, if you know what I mean. Beppo was at home on that Friday and won the league, like, you know, but knowing, you know, obviously knowing the club was gone, the club had collapsed. We knew the club. We knew back in September the club was gone, but we just managed to just kind of put all that to one side and just kind of got over the line. And it you know, like personally, I think it's the greatest, certainly my greatest achievement in football. But I think it's one of the greatest achievements by. I genuinely believe it by a team in football. I don't know any other top level team has won a league title under those kind of conditions, like, you know. So any other team, players would have just left. They'd have gone, like, you know. They'd have gone, like, they said, look, I haven't been paid in 4 weeks. Sure, in our contracts, if you go 2 weeks without wages, you're a free agent. Any other team, any of the players were just gone. Yeah. Everyone stayed. Ollie was trying to sell Jason Bourne to Djurgårdens, and I think he had a deal from them. And Ollie Cahill, there was a deal for Ollie Cahill as well, like, you know. So, like, but Jason wouldn't go. So they don't want to go, like, you know. So, like, I think there was a couple of 100,000, maybe 500,000 on the table, like, and Ollie's going bonkers. He's trying to sell a play, and no one will go, like, you know.
Yeah, like you were saying, is that just a testament down to that group that Pat built there? It was just such a strong core of players that just love the club so much.
That's a testament to Pat Fenlon, to those players, and for, to Ollie Bourne, believe it or not, like, you know, there was this sort of, you know, we all knew how much Ollie loved the club. We all knew what he was trying to do with the club, and we all bought into that. That's why we were there. You know, there was this build it and they will come kind of attitude. Like, you know, we and I want, you know, you just wanted to be part of that. You didn't want to retire from football and go, oh, I remember that we won that league, and, you know, yeah, and we won that. Like, you know, you wanted to be part of something special, something great, and it nearly happened. And because it nearly happened, because we had gone through that experience as a group, the players, Pat, the supporters, Ollie, you know, to be fair, in 2004, we had gone through that together, like, you know, and we realised, Jesus, we were that close. I think there was a connection there that, like, nobody wanted to kind of break it. No one kind of wanted to walk away, and they didn't want to be the person, oh, he walked off, he left. He left. But so we kept together, but we had to win the league, and it would only work if we won the league. If it didn't win the league, I think it would have tore shreds in Ollie's legacy, in our legacy, you know, because you'd look back at those 4 or 5 years and go, oh, well, they only won 2 leagues, you know, and but in the end, like, there was a 5-year period where we won 4 league titles, but the one in 2006 was just this. It was just, we just got over the line. I don't know how we did it. Like, we all walked out of Talcott Park that night and never walked back never came back a Shelbourne player, like, you know. 20 players cancelled their contracts. The staff, or Pat cancelled his contract. And that was it. Yeah, that was the final game for us.
Yeah. And as tough as that was, obviously, it's such a great relationship with the club. Obviously, you had to think about yourself, and so did the rest of the players. So Paul Doolan was really creating something at Drogheda at the time. They'd gone full time. They'd put a lot of money into it. What was it that sold you on the Drogheda project at the time?
I had known Paul, and I kind of, like, I think the only options I had were Bowes, Derry, or Drogheda, and I kind of quickly identified Drogheda as being the best opportunity for me. Ollie Cahill had signed for Drogheda as well, and I kind of made my mind. I was like, oh, I like to look at that, like, you know. And I kind of knew we'd be strong if myself and Ollie signed. They'd really good players at the time, like, you know, and they were kind of starting to kind of really knock on the door, like, you know. So it was fairly straightforward.
Yeah, and obviously then you won another league title there and the Santa Cup as well. What were your memories of those days? And did you feel like it was still as good? Obviously, Shelbourne was unbelievable, but did you feel
No,
like
it
the group
wasn't.
was really strong?
There was a good group. There were a good group of players there. I have to say, they really were. There was a good and some really top players. But my memory of that league, winning that league title, is I think there was no competition. It was Pats were our only competition, and they were. I think we beat them in a game in late August, maybe early September, and it was done. Like, I knew we would win it. Really, there was no one putting it up to us really, and that's not really Drogheda's fault. That was just more the Shelbourne thing had kind of tore a hole in the whole dynamic of the league, I suppose. I think Stephen Kenny went to obviously Dunfermline, and Derry weren't really strong that year. I think Roberts came in as manager, trying to remember who, and it didn't happen for them either. Like, so we were the strongest team in the league by far. Like, so um, um, it was to win that league was I think I got great satisfaction from winning it because it was a different team. You kind of proved yourself that you can do it with a different team. They're a really good group of players, but there wasn't huge competition in the league that year. It was just really, like I say, it was just really Pats, and they were him and Han all year anyway. Like,
And then after finishing up with Drogheda, you made the move yourself to Pats. What were your memories of your time in Inchicore?
I enjoyed them. I have to say, like, I was as a player, I was finished. Really, I was. I think I lost. I kind of lost my hunger really for it. But again, fighting with myself a little bit at Pats in the first year. I don't think I put my best foot forward there. Like, I always loved playing in Richmond Park. Loved the ground. I always loved playing against Pats as well. Like, and I always felt that Pats was this sort of sleeping giant of a club, and that's not to be like, not to say that they haven't had their time in history where they were, because they did. They had late '90s. Jesus, they were some team. With Paul Ozam and Martin Russell and Eddie Gormley, and like, what a team. But I always felt Pats kind of never really got to that place where they kind of could have, if you know what I mean. But first year in Pats, I didn't turn up. But second year, I enjoyed a lot, I have to say, because I knew it was my last year. And Pete Mann came in actually as manager, and it almost reminded me, believe it or not, of my first year at Longford. When I talk about that sort of, he was able to just create this sort of, bring in players and got the balance right, and and I remember my second year at Pats, we were top of the table up until about 7 or 8 games to go. Believe it or not, it was so. And I remember, like, coming from where I had come from, having won leagues at other clubs. You kind of have that in your head. It becomes instilled in you. Damien Lynch was there as well. He did the same. But I enjoyed that year because for a lot of it we were knocking on the door, and it was a little bit. I felt it was a little reminder to me of years gone past. Like, it was a nice feeling. Like, but that was it. That was it. That was the time to hang up the boots.
When it came to actually finally, hanging up your boots, did you find it hard to give it all up?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I knew I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be a clinger on her. Didn't want to be a hanger on her. The world at the time. I don't know how old you are, Adam, but if you can, if you have older siblings or anyone that remembers 2010, I think we all thought the world was going to just implode on itself. Like, the whole financial crisis that hit, and unemployment just went bonkers. And it wasn't a nice place to be at the time. Like, so I'm 30. I was 33 at the time, and I'm going, I need to shift here, like, because I don't think football is going to pay the wages for me at the time. I think I had 3 kids, sorry, at the time, and I had to kind of shift fairly quickly, like, you know. So I had to focus on that end of things, like, and luckily enough, things kind of did turn around. But no regrets at the time. I knew my time had come.
Oh, Stewie, thanks a million. I really appreciate your time. It's great to hear from your stories over the years about your different clubs. So really appreciate it.
No worries, Adam. Nice to talk to you.